Hello! In this video I want to look further at Kaitlin and why it is that she feels that she needs to put up with James's behaviour. Why is the abuse okay? And why on her recent videos does she seem to feel that she's responsible for the abuse, that it isn't in fact abuse and that she is the perpetrator?
Understand that, because you know it. You know that's why people hate me.
Yeah.
Because I don't live and let live. Because I can't move on when other people keep lying about me. On my own camera. And that is why we fought in the past.
Yeah.
But you won't talk about that. Then don't.
Okay.
Then don't. That's okay. But do not lie to me one more time, saying that it's finally time to move on.
Yeah.
But then you get to, just like one little piece for you, just so that you can own me. And I'm letting you know that for the last time. I will never hit you again. I will never abuse you again. This is not verbal abuse.
No.
Clear being. And get off of my throat. Because everyone is painting a narrative about me. And you're okay with just sitting back and letting it happen. Because if you weren't, the video would be finished. It would have been done when it was supposed to be done.
So this is a video that she was told she was supposed to make, that was meant to be made a long time ago.
But you keep stealing my time and my life and my energy, and I let it happen thinking it makes me a better person. But I sure don't seem like a good person. But ownership is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard. But it is not wrong for me to set an expectation that you will own what you've done to me.
Yes.
Because everyone else is going to own it too if they keep coming after me.
Yeah.
So every time you shove that down,
it's worse.
You're making it worse for me, and you know it. You know it. And then you try to hide it in that moment and give me a hug.
And what I have learned is that crying when things don't go my way, or when I'm embarrassed, or when I feel bad. Sometimes when you feel bad, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should cry. Sometimes it does. So I shouldn't say you, I say me. The amount of crying I've done over the past year and a half is not appropriate, though, in any sense. It's a lot of my behavior was considered socially acceptable. When, if you think about really the effects that it had on Jimmy, the effects that it had on other people, how they saw the situation playing out on screen, and because certain things were considered socially acceptable because of my age, gender, blah, blah, blah.
That sounds familiar. Where have we heard that before?
You're using every factor you have, your age, your gender, all of it, and then when you're off screen, you're extremely intelligent. You come on screen, you act dumb.
Okay.
All right?
Oh, that's where.
It warped a lot of how people perceive the situation. And so I was like, in my head, I saw it as, well, if this is all the effort he's putting in and and I feel like I could do better. I felt like I could just run the show, and if I just did it, it would go so much better, and blah, blah, blah.
What's wrong with her thinking she could run a YouTube channel better than James Saroka could? This is what I saw when I put James Saroka's name into the YouTube search bar.
So I kind of just wanted him to, at a certain point, I was so angry and upset. I just kind of wanted him to go away.
So she's managed to find a little crack there, you know, she's decided that she's arrogant for thinking that way. And that's really helpful, because if she's arrogant, then it means maybe he is right about her. And as long as he's right about her, it makes it so much easier, because it means she's not being abused, she's not a victim, so she needs to fix herself, and then everything will be fine between them.
I was not a victim in any way. I victimized myself because I didn't want to take responsibility for what I could. I saw him this week because of some of the medications and he was on, based also with how far he'd been pushed. I thought that what I saw was who he was, not a result of what had been done to him.
She's saying that his mental health problems affected the way she viewed him, and that now she's realised that this isn't who he is really, it's just a result of how people have treated him. But why is that not who he is? What's the difference? You know, people have good reasons for having mental health problems, but that doesn't mean they don't have them. When somebody has a mental health problem, they're likely to interpret things differently. So why wouldn't she view him according to that? Why wouldn't she take that into account when she's deciding how to think of him? Again, she seems to be beating herself up.
And I'd experienced a lot of loss of control in my teenage years, and I coped in the wrong way. I wanted to seek control instead of I wanted to seek control. And even though it's on me to grow up, it's on me to be an adult, it's on me to take responsibility for my actions. When someone will take responsibility for their actions, sometimes other people will step in. Lack of responsibility socially, that it's on me to be responsible because society won't make me responsible for it. I would get angry and upset when things would start to go well. I would get angry and upset because I was so insecure that and I saw what I'd done. I saw how my behavior was, and I was like, oh shoot, this is how I'm behaving. So if Jimmy starts to do well, then that's what a normal human being would do. Is if someone's not treating you appropriately and you can get away from them, you should probably do that.
Jimmy ended the relationship with Kaitlin twice while they were away. And this is normal for a narcissist, that they will use this power of ending a relationship to get more control over the other person.
Unless you are both trying to genuinely work it out and do better, which Jimmy and I are doing now. So that's, I think, me being so angry and upset, and then the other half of the time, me bawling my eyes out because I wasn't coping well. Because again, half of it was extreme culture shock. The other half was me not being an adult, and that was totally within my control. That was part of the reason why Jimmy decided to break up with me when we were in California. A lot of what people saw, I got so skinny, and all of that was all of my internal guilt and whatnot from what I had done and that I knew I had done. It was destroying me from the inside out.
So she's talked about herself as being arrogant, for thinking she could do better, about how she shouldn't cry, it's really inappropriate, she shouldn't be using her gender and her age and so on to be manipulative, all of this. And so why does everything seem so twisted? We've seen and heard James abusing her, and we've seen that she's not behaving in a manipulative way. So why does she think she is? In this video, I'm going to have a look at what the roots of her learned helplessness were. And I mentioned in the last video that learned helplessness is when you ignore your own experiences of things and instead you take on someone else's. So no matter how things have felt for her, or what's actually happened, the role that she's actually played in this relationship, all of that has been replaced with the view of the world and of what happened between them that James has and that he would like her to have. So she's taken that on, and she seems to be completely brainwashed. I think the guilt she mentions will have been with her for a very long time in lots of different relationships, and I think that she will have played this role of feeling responsible when somebody else should be responsible, and feeling like she's a perpetrator when she's actually a victim. I think that will have been happening for a very long time as well. So in this video I'm going to look at where I think the roots of this begin. But before I get started, I just want to thank my subscribers. I've now reached 30,000 or just over, and so, you know, that was an exciting milestone to reach, and I didn't expect to reach it this soon. I started the channel a year and 4 months ago, I've worked out, and I didn't think that I would have this much support so quickly. So thank you all so much. And if you haven't subscribed, please just subscribe and hit the notification bell as well, because most people don't. I think it was either 3 or 4% of my subscribers actually get notifications. That's what YouTube have told me. So if you don't hit that bell, I don't think you know when I put a video out. So hit the subscriber bell. And this video is super long. You know, it was going to be a lot shorter, but I just wanted to get everything that I could analysed. You know, it was a sort of rabbit hole really that I found myself going down. My first ever video was 5 minutes long, and that was when it was so much easier, and now they've gradually, over the months, they've sort of got longer and longer. And so the time between them has grown because of that. But I think I am going to get back to putting out some shorter ones so they can go out a bit more often. Kaitlin has said that when she was growing up, she had to do a lot of chores around the house. She's talked about how she wasn't happy, but she pretended to be happy, and she felt like she had to fake it. And she's said that she doesn't want to go home, that she used to be caught between her parents when they were having marital problems. This was put on to a YouTube channel via the parents. So all it says is that Jim and Kaitlin were hinting that her parents were abusive, and that they had said they were lying about something. Because Kaitlin's mother seems to me to avoid responsibility for things, to not really acknowledge her role in events, I can see why someone might accuse her of lying. But even at this stage, when Kaitlin and Jim were apparently only hinting that they'd been abusive, and when they had just accused them of lying, and there were apparently no specifics, even then they were already getting a lawyer. This seems to me to be a very strong and defensive reaction.
Please remember, there are haters both ways. I heard lots of rumors of things that we have never done. So paranoia has clouded perceptions.
The creator of this channel is clearly concerned for Kaitlin, but she also seems to be very convinced by the parents' way of seeing things, you know, and she seems sure that Kaitlin's view of her parents is completely wrong. There are two sides to every story. I will be an advocate for the parents as long as they want me to, ensuring both sides of the story are told. Jim has been controlling the communication between Kaitlin and her parents for far too long. If only Kaitlin would speak for herself, talk with her parents about the things she thinks they have done, have an honest conversation, many of the whispers in her head would be dispelled. Because her parents have the truth. And they don't have an agenda, they have love. As I looked through the videos on this channel, I got this claustrophobic, sort of suffocating feeling. And I felt like Kaitlin was being intruded on and invaded. Her mother looks through her birthday cards, opens each one and reads it to everyone. That, for instance, feels like an invasion of privacy.
But this is Kaitlin's birthday cards. And then we have a very pretty one. Another butterfly. Says, we miss you at Aftershock. Kaitlin helped a lot with the, she actually helped start up the junior high youth group. Hope you have a great day. Fred, Melissa, Mason, and Lillian. And then this one, I don't know if you can see, it's very shiny. with a bluebird on it. And this is from my cousin who, her son was born the same year as Kate. So they started college at the same time and everything. Dear Katie, happy birthday. God created a beautiful young woman when he made you.
And the idea behind that was apparently to remind her that all these people love her, but it still felt like she didn't have boundaries in terms of her privacy as far as her mother is concerned. And then we see all of these photos of the family, you know, and everybody's face is hidden apart from Kaitlin's. So that seems peculiar to me, you know. Has Kaitlin agreed to all these photos being seen of her? I don't get the impression she has. So why isn't her privacy also being respected? And whose benefit is this really for, you know? Is this really to protect Kaitlin, or is this more to protect the parents' version of her upbringing? The video seems to me to scream at us, we were great parents. And, you know, and I just think that that's interesting, because I think that a lot of parents do recognise that there isn't such a thing as a perfect parent, and they're often worrying that they're not good enough parents. So to have this video go out about this apparently, you know, ideal childhood is it's not going to feel like her parents are on her side if they're chucking out videos telling everyone how great they were at parenting her and how no one should rely on her version of events. My last two videos were about gaslighting and how James Saroka is gaslighting Kaitlin. But having these videos put out by her mum explaining to us and to Kaitlin how, you know, how she's completely wrong about her memories of her childhood, that also feels like gaslighting.
Before, I had a lot of very, very fake emotional responses. And now, I don't have a lot of responses because I am learning how to have healthy emotional, facial, and just in general healthy emotional responses.
Kaitlin has talked about how her expressions didn't always represent how she felt, and she'd pretend to feel okay when she didn't feel okay. What is the point of showing this picture? Showing her grinning, you know, and saying, why didn't she tell us about it? Well, what's the point of that? Because if they really want to know that, if Kaitlin's mum really wants to know, why didn't you tell me? Then why would she be asking all of us? The reason why is because it's a rhetorical question. She's not interested in the answer. Because, you know, I think the point she's really making is, look at Kaitlin, look how happy she is. Everything she says is not true. She was really happy and she had this ideal childhood because we made it ideal for her, because we're really great parents. And the video continues using this sarcastic tone of voice. And it reminds us again that this is a competition to Kaitlin's mum, and it's a competition she wants to win. It's not about thinking about how her daughter has felt, how her daughter has thought, and whether there might be truth to any of this, whether she's coming from an honest place, and whether maybe her and her husband might have made some mistakes somewhere along the line. You know, that's not anywhere in her priorities. In fact, she just doesn't want to know about that. By putting these videos out, they're telling the world that Kaitlin's opinion can't be trusted. So they can't be forgiving of the fact that they're being made to look bad, you know, that they're being shown in a negative light. Obviously, he's called them sociopaths, so he's really exaggerated things, and they can't tolerate it. And for anyone, that's going to be hurtful. You know, a smear campaign is painful. But the way they're dealing with it, to jump into this situation as if it's this big competition, and to make out that they've been these ideal parents, and that Kaitlin has no point to make, that, you know, nothing she says on this subject can be trusted, that undermines their daughter and it humiliates her in front of everyone. And that doesn't seem to matter to them. They've got themselves a lawyer. You know, what matters to them is how they're seen. And that comes first. That seems to come before their daughter's feelings. Kaitlin's mum has also asked her to come home.
There's no pressure to go back to college. That was never an absolute. You should know that. It was never an absolute for any of you guys. If you're not comfortable with the RV, we will set you up in an apartment.
Kate's parents might be worried about her, but it is a bit hard to tell, because it's hard to separate any worry from the propaganda that's going out. And it's hard to separate what's for Kate's benefit and what's for theirs. And one of their motives, they say, is to try to remind her of how great their relationship had been, you know, what a great childhood she had, and to try to unbrainwash her and so on. But that's patronising, because it's making the assumption that, you know, everything she says about it is a result of her being brainwashed by James, that, you know, that there can't be any truth in it, and that everything she says she's experienced just didn't happen. She didn't have these painful feelings in the past. A video on the Kaitlin Be Safe channel asks why she's with him, and lots of theories follow this. One of these theories is that she wanted a change, and here we can see how things were with the family and Kaitlin before she actually met James. It says, according to family, Kaitlin stopped watching TV shows with the family months before Jim entered the picture, and was starting to have problems connecting with the parents or her brothers. Church, family vacations, and going to Walmart were the extent of contact Kaitlin had with the family. Then it talks about what the family did, which feels to me like more propaganda. And then it says, Kaitlin started spending all her time at her job, school, or in her bedroom. So I think that shows us that Kaitlin was uncomfortable with her family, that there was something that made her not want to spend time with them. I thought it was interesting the way that was put, that Kaitlin had problems connecting with them, not that they had problems connecting with her. Now, I do think that James Saroka would be the kind of person to be jealous of Kaitlin, and I think we've already seen an example of that. You know, in the last two videos I've put out, I think that there's some clear examples of jealousy coming from him. You know, that he hates the way that she's viewed so differently from him in their videos. They are reaching out. They haven't given up. you know, and you can see why he might be jealous of that, because he didn't experience something like that in his childhood. His father was convicted of threatening to blow up a building, and he battered James when he was a tiny baby. You know, I think he was just a couple of weeks old, and he had, I think, 18 breaks in his ribs. So he had a horrific time when he was a little baby. And this abuse continued until he was 3 years old. He was being burnt and hit and so on. And then he was placed into foster care. So you can see why he would have a distrust of people in authority, and why he might think the worst of Kaitlin's parents. You know, he might assume that they don't really care about her. So there are these two reasons as to why he might be being, you know, really negative about her parents. And then, of course, the third reason is control. He wants to have control over Kaitlin, and that's really clear from the 2 videos I've already put out about him. A sociopath will frequently isolate their victim. They'll try to make sure that there's no one who they can go to for support, because that way they're more vulnerable, they're easier to manipulate and control. You know, and so it makes sense that he has tried to separate her from her family and her friends. So while all of this would make sense, and while we can already see that she seems to be showing signs of being brainwashed, I can still see why she would look back on the situation with her parents and feel that she wants to escape it. And I'm saying that not just going off what she's saying, but actually mostly going off how the mother speaks about what happened. So I'm going to take a closer look at that now.
I mean, I have a choice. I can, you know, basically step away from my family, or I can step away from Kate, and she clearly doesn't want us right now. So
I thought choosing between Kaitlin and her family seemed a strange thing to say, because Kaitlin is her daughter. And this happens twice, you know, this is the first time she says it, but she says something similar later on.
You know, a lot of women fall into a bad relationship at some point or another. And you know what? I did too. You know, you just pick yourself up and you move on.
It doesn't seem that she sees this as having anything to do with Kate's experience of growing up, you know. It seems that she thinks that anyone has, you know, this equal risk of ending up in this situation, and it's just some kind of external force. Learned helplessness has its roots in childhood. Somewhere along the line, the child became convinced not to trust their own reality. And not to trust their own sense of what happened and what they experience. And this happens when the parent's version of reality takes over.
9/27, so September 27th, first time he was coming over for dinner. So Jim doesn't have the pressure of sitting directly across from your father. I'm putting you at the end and Jim next to your brother. You know, just trying to be polite, considerate, you know. Then, let's see, 3 days later, September 30th. If Karen isn't doing anything for Jim's B-Day on Friday, we can have him over for dinner and dessert. I wouldn't want him to think his B-Day doesn't matter. You know, malicious person that I am. Come by when you're done at Skate Town and let us know how it went. You know, just really nasty people that we are. Negative.
It sounds like she was genuinely supportive of James, like, you know, she wanted him to do well, but at the same time I get this suffocating feeling again. She seems to me to be controlling of him.
So then trying to keep him busy because he wasn't in school anymore. And trying to help him become autonomous. So our mostly quick things to do. Work on getting switched over to Columbia County for his health insurance. See if you can make an appointment with that psychiatrist at Geisinger. I even gave him a link. All you had to do was touch the link. See if you can make an appointment with the counselor at Bloom Psych. Again, all you had to do was touch the phone. Work on your training. Formally withdraw from BU. I am wide open tomorrow because I could not babysit him this day. I had errands and stuff to do.
She talks about him as if he's a young boy. And I really feel the contempt when she says that she couldn't babysit him anymore.
I am wide open tomorrow, so you are welcome to come over around lunch tomorrow, but you still need to complete at least 3 of the above.
Again, I get this feeling of contempt, that she'll only speak to him if he's done these things on the list. It doesn't feel like she's treating him as an equal, and she's offering her help and support if he needs it. It feels like she needs to be the one in control. Something that might be more appropriate if he was, under 10 years old.
Kate had a habit of not responding to texts because she would leave her sound off all the time because of classes and work. She would never remember in between to turn the sound on and check her phone. So that Katie isn't responding again. Are you guys okay?
Here's another example of that controlling feeling again, that Kate doesn't always remember to turn her phone volume up, and she hasn't responded again to a text message. It just feels a bit like the mum is sort of always there, always in the picture, messaging her, and like Kate is supposed to be looking out for these messages. One of these things alone might not really be anything. It's just when it's all there together, across these text messages that you start to see a pattern.
So December 17th, please make sure you apologize to your father. Oh, this is a tough one. Okay, so I know everybody has really made fun of Kate for her thermometer. I had talked to Kaitlin back when she was like 14, I think, 14 or 15, about natural family planning as a means of being self-aware. So, because it's really good to be aware of what your body is doing. I wanted her to, have that option of tracking her physical health like that. Basal temperature, yes. So, but she never really did anything with it. Well, then she and Jim started dating. Now, you have to understand, on the 15th, December 15th, she had a car accident down in the Philadelphia area after she went to the theater with Nana. She was leaving Nana's, got into a car accident, totaled the car. So both Jim and her father went flying down. But of course she wanted Jim. Her dad wanted to take care of her too, but, So then the next day, I believe he took the phone to talk to insurance or something like that. And she had on it screenshots of natural family planning. Her dad's trying not to freak out, So then I talked to her the next morning, on the morning of the 17th. Please make sure you apologize to your father this evening. She said that she was researching it again because it came up on a tape for Christian couples. And she remembered me talking about it, so she was interested again. So, please make sure you apologize to your father this evening. I am fairly sure he was going out of his mind all night. I was stressing, and I'm not Dad. An average father gets bent out of shape, and you have an exceptional one. Yeah, I just wish he would have asked me about it, and then I could have dispelled all his fears. He didn't want to flip out on you. Well, perhaps he just wasn't thinking clearly. Only ask in a calmish, concerned voice what the photos were about. Like, Kate.
She missed off the R at the beginning of Caitlin's text, and she also missed off the last sentence. So if we read the whole text out, this is how she might sound. Ah, well, perhaps he wasn't thinking clearly, because he didn't need to freak out on me. Only ask in a calmish, concerned voice what the photos were about. But I digress, we've all been through a lot lately. And if you listen to the way her mother reads her text message and the tone of voice she uses, it seems that she wants to cast her daughter in a certain light.
Well, perhaps he just wasn't thinking clearly. Only ask in a calmish, concerned voice what the photos were about. Like, Kate, that after the accident, your father wanted to hold you and make you feel safe too, but he understood that you wanted Jim. You throw in the perception that you're making unhealthy choices, he wouldn't have been able to ask calmly.
She missed out a couple of important sentences. Here's how the whole text reads. After the accident, your father wanted to hold you and make you feel safe too, but he understood that you wanted Jim. But not being able to comfort you has had him even more itchy. You throw in the perception that you're making unhealthy choices and he was ready to unravel. He wouldn't have been able to ask calmly. Thanks for recognising that. She tends to put in the bits that make her and her husband look better and leave out the bits that make them look worse or that make Kaitlin look better. When these bits are added in, Kaitlin's dad sounds out of control of his emotions. He sounds quite needy, and it seems that all of this is being put onto her shoulders by her mother. She ends the message with, "Thanks for recognising that." Maybe she didn't feel like explaining to him what the photos were there for, you know. Maybe at the time she felt overwhelmed that he had just gone through her phone. But again, the way that the mother is talking doesn't seem to take into consideration how it would feel to be violated like that, you know, to have someone go through your phone. It's again this feeling that she can't have privacy, you know, that her privacy is going to be invaded and she has to just be okay with that. At this stage, I believe she was 18, you know, so she's already an adult. She has a right to have a sex life if that's what she wanted to do. And it turns out that I don't think that is what she was doing, or at least that's what the parents were told. But why should she have to explain that? So it's another example of her being intruded on, you know, her being expected to put her own needs and her own boundaries second, and to sort of carry this weight of the parents' needs instead. It reminds me of a video that was also put out on this Kaitlin Be Safe channel. Kaitlin's mother was in agreement with all of these videos, you know, so she'll be aware that this content is going out. And I think that she's obviously okay with it. And to me, this screams of emotional blackmail, you know, that Kate's being told, look at what you're doing to your father. And he obviously didn't have a heart attack, and yet even then, you know, heart attack is being mentioned, that it might have been a heart attack, and you know, that they might have limited time together. I just can't believe that this is all being put onto poor Kate's shoulders. Again, that Kate is completely responsible for her parents' emotions.
Okay, so now we're into January. Yeah, and this is when her attitude really went south. I just realized I don't have my credit card on me. You can, please, don't surprise me with any other charges on my card. Take my card out of my wallet and get tickets for the neighbors. I was like, whoa, excuse me.
There's a gap between the you can and take my card, where she might have used brackets when, you know, when she's saying, please don't make any more charges. So she's really saying, you can take my card out of my wallet and get the tickets for the neighbours. That sounds quite different from how the mother has read it, like it's an order. Take my card out of my wallet. The three pleases make her sound like this is important to her, not like she's trying to make a rude point. And she even apologises afterwards, something her mother missed out and didn't read. I apologise if I sound like Dad. And it's interesting how she's saying, you can take my card out of my wallet and get the tickets for the neighbours. I wonder if this is a favour she's doing her mum. Kaitlin's mum does explain that she doesn't use credit cards anymore. So maybe she wasn't able to buy one herself. But the way she's read this text, you'd never guess that Kaitlin is actually helping her mother out.
I said, well, you clearly don't trust me, so I will not go into your wallet. You can do it or explain it to the neighbors. Now, to clarify, a medication I was on several years ago resulted in impulse control issues. I did absolutely rack up $10,000 in credit card debt several years ago. This isn't anything new here. I've been on a cash system since. We did discuss this attitude when she got home. She apologized, but...
Did Kaitlin need to apologise?
Things just started getting wonky in January.
Kaitlin's mother has betrayed her trust in the past. Her boundaries were violated when Kate's mum used her credit card. And so some trust will have been lost, and Kaitlin is asking her to make sure she doesn't do the same thing again. She's setting a clear boundary that's very reasonable, and she's even tiptoeing around a bit, sort of trying to lighten the mood and put this across very gently by saying, sorry if I sound like Dad. So she racked up $10,000 worth of debt in the past, and she's blaming that on the medication she was on. But medication doesn't make people rack up $10,000 worth of debt. You have to play some role in it. Medication might have an effect. She's saying it made her more impulsive. But she played a role in it, and she's not taking any responsibility for that. She's also being passive-aggressive with Kaitlin. She's being controlling and manipulative, and she's guilt-tripping her just for setting a very reasonable boundary.
I said, well, you clearly don't trust me, so I will not go into your wallet. You can do it or explain it to the neighbors.
She's not considering Kaitlin's feelings at all. This is only about her and her feelings and how hurt she is to not be trusted when she has broken Kaitlin's trust in the past. It's interesting later how she talks about trust being violated when she has done this in the past. It's not Kate's problem that her mother feels uncomfortable remembering the past and how she's behaved. So Kaitlin is being told off for being disrespectful when I can't see any disrespect in her text message. All I can see is her setting a boundary in the most polite, sensitive way she can. So she's being taught that she's not allowed to have boundaries, that again, she's responsible for the feelings of one of her parents, and that those feelings need to come before her own, even if they come from a really unreasonable place. This will be setting her up to allow other people to have their feelings come before hers.
Dad is calm and would like the four of us to sit down together and get on the same page. Can I pick you guys up for dinner around 5:30? Jim says, sure.
Dad is calm, so I have the impression that maybe he often isn't. In one of her mother's videos, Kaitlin's father is described as struggling with humility. So, reading between the lines, he's arrogant and he's also really possessive of his daughter, as we've seen, that he was really struggling not to be the one to take care of her when her boyfriend was doing that. And also he seems to have difficulty staying calm. So it sounds like he can snap quite quickly. He can suddenly become angry. And for a child, anger is scary. If somebody can get really angry, especially if you don't know when it's coming, it can be a really scary thing to live with. And it can change the way that a child behaves. This is another of the conditions of learned helplessness. That you need to abandon your own feelings if expressing them is going to cause the other person to lose control of themselves and become scary. Kaitlin's mother doesn't explain what her husband is now calm about. So we don't know what the argument was about or what they all have to get together to discuss. And that's quite unusual. She normally tells us if there's anything that she wants to say in complaint of Kaitlin. So I'm wondering if there's something that she's ashamed of that she doesn't want to tell us about. Whatever it is, it causes Kate to decide that rather than have this family meeting, she wants to go and stay somewhere else that night. So I would guess that she feels uncomfortable having a discussion about this with her parents. And if her father is now calm, it would suggest that before he wasn't. Maybe that's why she doesn't want to discuss it.
I ended up just stopping in and getting some of Kate's things. She said she would be staying with a friend, quote unquote, not Jim. She specified.
She said she's staying with a friend, and what we'll later find out is that she was actually staying with James. Her parents weren't comfortable with her lying next to her boyfriend. I don't know if she was sexually active at that time. She had a very religious upbringing, and it seems like she herself is religious. I'm not quite sure what her religion is. You know, I've seen people talk about her being Amish, but I don't know if that's true. But so I don't know if, if they were actually having sex at his place or if they just wanted to lie next to each other there. But either way, I think it's understandable why a girl in her position, who's actually now an adult, she's 18, it's sort of understandable why she would tell a white lie to her parents so that she could stay over at her boyfriend's if her parents are really strict about these things. She would have known that had she told them what she was doing, they would have been uncomfortable with it and they probably would have made that clear to her. They've already shown signs that that when they're affected by things emotionally, she's expected to be responsible for that, for their feelings.
And then the next day on the 22nd, am I bringing you two home this morning? No. So yeah, there's Sunday. Yeah, Kate spent the night. I started tracking when she was spending the night.
Her mum thinks that it's perfectly reasonable for her to be tracking her movements.
So, Wednesday the 23rd. Hey, Mama C, I just wanted to be straightforward and honest with you, as we weren't yesterday. Kaitlin stayed with me last night. No kidding. I don't want to be evicted. Neither one of us believes in cohabitation before marriage.
James takes charge and tells Kaitlin's mum that they've been lying, that she has stayed with him. And I wonder if this is because Kate was getting so uncomfortable with telling this lie. But it's interesting how he seems to rescue her, because it seems to me to be the beginning of this controlling kind of situation. At first it seems like he's the good one, that he is telling the parents because he's got a conscience and he wants to be honest with them. But I wonder if this is him being really manipulative and taking charge through appearing to be this rescuer.
And now all communication is through his phone from the day the 23rd on. Kaitlin handed us back her phone, asking if it was okay for her to come home, because she understood if we didn't want her to come home. We were like, of course you can come home.
It doesn't sound like she gave her phone back in anger, because she's asking to come home. And her mother doesn't talk about it as if she thinks it's strange.
The 23rd on. Kaitlin handed us back her phone.
It's a bit different from saying she gave us her phone. Handing it back, it sounds like she was expected to do that, that she was asked to do that. And I wonder if this was because of the argument or because she didn't want to spend that night there, if this was some kind of punishment. There are a couple of times since then that they seem to have reacted in quite a strong way with what seems to me to be a punishment. Again, this sounds to me like a condition. She can only have this phone if she's doing what her parents want her to do. So again, it sounds controlling, and it sounds like she's somehow being violated. There must have been a reason for her to ask if she could still come home. So she must have had this sense that that she had to live her life a certain way in order to fit in, and otherwise there would be consequences, and she wouldn't be as welcome. Jim has written a message saying about Kaitlin. She also asks that in the future she be let known what nights you'd like her to make dinner, so there's no discrepancies. Caitlin's mum doesn't read this out loud. And I wonder if this is what the whole problem was about, you know, and why she wanted to spend the night elsewhere that night. So it sounds like she was expected to make dinner, but she hadn't been aware of it, and that maybe there was an argument about that. So the chores we know about so far are cleaning the bathroom, doing the laundry, making dinner, and I don't know what else there was, but it sounds like quite a lot, considering she's also paying rent. That seems like a reasonable request, but the way she replies is just to say, yeah, I need to talk to you guys about needing some extra help in the next few weeks.
So now all communication with Kaitlin is now through Jim's phone. So Kaitlin says that she will have rent ready when we get back. Can I give you gas money so you can return to daily adoration? I believe you were both under attack. And I was, you know, I know a lot of people think this is strange. I believe in angels and demons. I do. So the 10th, she's there. The 11th, she slept there. The 12th, the day of my surgery, she slept there. 13th, she slept there. She was home Thursday, I believe. Of all days.
Even though James has now shown his true colours, and so it would be natural for any parent to be very worried that their son or daughter was living with someone like this, that's not how things were at that time. So Caitlin's mum tracking her movements isn't a sign that that she hated the thought that her daughter was with a man like this. Caitlin's mum has said that Jim was like a son to her. She's said that he was coming round for 16 hours a day. So she was really comfortable with him.
Friday the 15th, she's there. Saturday the 16th, she's there. I think I stopped tracking it at that point because with the recovery and everything, and she was obviously gone. She didn't want us.
It's interesting how she phrases it. She didn't want us. She's taken it so personally that Kaitlin wants to stay the night with her boyfriend and that she keeps staying over. So you would have thought that this would be a sort of honeymoon period of a relationship, the early days, and that maybe the mother might be excited that her daughter's got a boyfriend, you know, a first relationship. She's behaving like an ex-partner who's obsessed, you know, with someone they've lost, rather than being happy for her daughter.
So then this is the 13th, so the day after my surgery. Now all communication now is going through her dad's phone, not mine. Before my surgery, her dad didn't have Jim's number, I don't believe, or Jim never communicated with him. But after my surgery, everything went through her dad because I could not handle the stress.
She couldn't handle the stress. So, you know, what is this stress about? Why is she so stressed? I get the feeling that it's this loss of control. And as we'll see, you know, right now, she's clearly not doing what's good for her. But I think part of the reason for that will be this history of not having been trusted to make the right decisions for herself. You know, this level of control.
Tuesday the 19th, this is when things got really hairy. So then I was asleep on the sofa bed in the living room so that I wasn't supposed to be taking the stairs. And Kate's in the kitchen. Kate and Jim are in the kitchen. I vaguely hear them tell her father she was moving in with her best friend's family. She had already made arrangements. And then they come back at 9 o'clock. It was like 9:30, taking the rest of her stuff out. She'd already taken out bags and bags of stuff.
Listen to how angry she sounds.
She'd already taken out bags and bags of stuff. So So then we have emails. So this is from me to the family she was staying with on the evening of the 19th. Okay. So I wanted to reach out to you about Kate because she said she was moving into your house, step in a healthier direction. We are trying to stay out of her way and let her stand or fall on her own. I just want to know if she's safe. Okay. So then, the next morning, Wednesday morning at 7:30 in the morning, "Hi, I'm sorry you all are struggling right now. Kate stopped by with her boyfriend last night for a while and seemed well. She asked if she could stay here a couple nights a week for a while, not live there, stay there a couple nights. We said that was fine, but we didn't get into any details of exactly when this would happen."
What an angry laugh. It's a white lie. It's a lie that's being told to spare her parents' feelings. It's not a devious, nasty kind of lie that's, intending to hurt someone or to manipulate anyone.
So we're happy to help where we can as she finds her way. If we get more info about when she'll be here, I'll let you know. Later that afternoon, "Thanks for letting us know. We don't need a play-by-play of Kate's coming and going. We just want to know she's as safe as she's able to be at the moment." Okay, and I've CC'd her dad. So then, Wednesday night, her father changed the locks. Okay, this is Wednesday evening, the 20th. This is after she officially moved out, and we have evidence that she's living with him. Okay, got it.
We have evidence she's living with him. That sounds like some kind of trial, it sounds like a criminal trial in court. Here is the evidence that she's been doing this. And it feels like changing the locks was a punishment. That's how it's coming across. They haven't said anyone burgled them, or that the key wasn't working properly. There's no explanation given for changing the locks, apart from that they have evidence that she is living with her boyfriend. What's that got to do with why you need to change the locks in your house? And why would you say it like that? Why would you say we have evidence that you're doing this? It's making this little white lie into this huge crime. That she's having to be Sherlock Holmes and solve this crime. And now she's found out what's happened. And it's become this massive thing, like her daughter is really devious and manipulative and untrustworthy. This was taken from the Kaitlin Be Safe channel. So it was put up on behalf of the parents. It was in response to apparently rumours about what had happened. So here it says she broke into her parents' house. False. She tried. So she tried to break in. Well, that's not true. The locks were changed after Kaitlin lied to her father, after she had declared she was moving out and after she had moved out. So here it's pretty clear that that the locks were changed as a direct result of Kaitlin having lied to her father. So it was clearly a punishment. And she needs to be punished and she needs to be locked out, She has to really be on the outside of this family now because she has crossed a serious line.
Okay, so her father so her father's in blue. Okay. "I am very disappointed that she has lied to me." They send back, "Please share the lie. We are both genuinely confused." He sends, "You have lied to me so many times, you're not sure which one I caught, or you're lying to yourselves about what you told." And this is on the 21st, Thursday the 21st. So now I had an appointment, my 1 week follow-up appointment. Okay. And my friend came to get me because I'm not supposed to be driving. I'm not supposed to be moving too much. So But her brothers were hung for ice. We had ice that morning. So brothers said Kate showed up moments after I left. Moments. She still had access to this. She could still see all this. So, coincidence that she just happened to show up moments after I left for my doctor's appointment?
It's interesting Caitlin's mother is so outraged that Kaitlin had intentionally avoided seeing her when she has just changed the locks so her daughter can't get into the house.
Okay, so now this is also 221. Now her father is unaware that they showed up at the house. She tried to come in. Her key didn't work. The boys would not unlock the door for her. Okay? And she pitched a flying fit at them. So, and that really, really rattled her youngest brother.
Why wouldn't her brothers unlock the door for her? She's told one lie and now she's suddenly an outcast. She's not allowed into the family home. Why? And her mother never talks about how that would actually feel. She doesn't show any empathy at all for her daughter. How would it feel to be in that situation where nobody wants you at home anymore? You know, even your brothers just won't open the door to you, as if you're this terrible person. You know, that's how it would have felt to Kaitlin, like she is such a bad person that she's not even allowed to set foot in the house. I think it's really interesting that the mother is putting this information out online, you know, without feeling any need to sort of, you know, to talk about how this would have been for Kaitlin. You know, she doesn't seem embarrassed about it at all. She's talking about it like it's perfectly normal. And that tells me something more about her. It tells me how used to ignoring Caitlin's feelings she actually is. Because in the past, their daughter, it seems, would have just complied and just been who they wanted her to be. She was allowed the freedom of not going to the family games night. And you know, the fact that the mother even mentions that, it suggests to me that she thinks this was this massive freedom that her daughter was given at the age of 14. So I get the impression that she really didn't have much freedom at all, and that she would have felt that the love from her parents was conditional on her behaving in a way that didn't involve her expressing her true feelings for a lot of the time. It's impossible for her to win, you know, unless she lives her life exactly the way her parents want her to. How can she still feel welcome and loved? She can't. You know, because if she'd been honest and said what she was doing, then her mum isn't going to be okay with that. She's learnt that. That's why she lied in the first place. And look, we can see that that's the case, because look at this huge deal her mum is making out of this little white lie. She's made it into this huge, terrible sin, you know, this terrible crime that her daughter has committed. And it's very clear that now she is not welcome home. That is what changing the locks is saying to her daughter.
Anyway, so we received an email that you will not be living with your best friend. You have already told us that you have been staying at Jim's. The underwriters would not let me remove Kaitlin from the auto insurance unless I provided a forwarding address. I called to get Jim's address.
She neglects to read a lot of this message out, so I'll read it. They promptly told me that they could not tell me anything else and hung up on me. Later they called me back and told me that they would be looking into if you were living with Jim and that this was a violation of his lease.
Okay, now keep in mind, this is on the 21st. They assured me he won't be losing his apartment or anything like that. It is in writing.
James has told Kate's mother in the past that he's not allowed to have anyone live with him, and she is aware of that. So when she contacts these people to say that they're living together, she's aware that this is breaking James's tenancy agreement, you know, that he's not allowed to do that. So her response to her daughter living her own life is to try to stop it from happening, to try to make it impossible for them to live together. She's ignoring her daughter's boundaries, and she's being entitled enough to think that she has a right to do that. You know, it feels to me like Kate was owned by her parents, and that they're really furious and wanting to take revenge, as is clear by the fact they changed the locks, because they no longer had ownership of her. Why has she immediately taken Kate off the car insurance? She's just moved out. You know, it seems again like another punishment, like her mum really cementing that her daughter is not welcome. Her daughter no longer lives there and now can't live there because she's taken her off the insurance. She's changed the locks. You know, it's really sort of extreme stuff. She hasn't lived exactly as her parents wanted her to. She hasn't remained completely under their control because she's lied to them. So now she has to be punished because they're seeing this lie in the worst possible light as this terrible crime that's been committed against them. So is it surprising that Kaitlin has learnt to think of herself as someone who's really dishonest and devious? And someone who deserves to be ranted at for it.
And is the only thing happening here. You're a good liar.
I will admit that I do things like that sometimes, and if I did it this time, I don't consciously remember it.
Kate?
But I believe that I did it.
Kate?
Yeah.
You're a good liar to most, but the people who know, they know.
So when James Saroka threatens to throw her out saying she's lying, is it surprising she puts up with that when her parents have changed the locks on her for the same reason?
You will not lie to people and sleep in my bed. You want to talk about feeling aggressive? It's the weirdest thing in the world because I have every desire to kick you out of my house right now.
So I'm going to leave it here and post the second half on Monday. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you get notified when I post a video.